Welcome back to the vlog, and I'm just enjoying what's a beautiful day out here. Thanks for joining in. Today we really want to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, and it's this beautiful F-Type behind me. The JLR group is in serious financial dire straits. And could it actually be the end for this wonderful car manufacturer? I don't know. Let's talk about that today. But before we do that, I want to share with you guys some of the recent updates with what's been going on in the world lately. Obviously, the last time I posted, I was in Mexico. I was in Cancun. We had a great little family vacation. And so lots has actually happened since we spoke last when I reviewed the F-Pace, because we had that in our possession for some time. You know, we got back from Mexico middle of November. Merely a month later, some major things have been evolving. And of course, we've seen a lot of stuff in the news. A particular travel agency, a carrier, and actually, without calling them out by name, they're the ones that we traveled with when we went to Cancun. Sadly enough, only a month after that, people are finding themselves stranded in the Cancun airport, couldn't get away, couldn't get their flights to and from, they couldn't get hotel rooms, and they struggled with their whole vacation plans. It wasn't exclusive to Mexico either, but that was clearly one of the hot spots. I watched lots of vlogs and videos of people where that actual airport that I was in merely a month before was now literally from wall to wall people, and unfortunately the police in Mexico weren't allowing people to actually leave and go somewhere else. They were sort of locking them down, and it was a very difficult and uneasy experience. Well, fortunately, we dodged a bullet on that one, because clearly it was fine, clear sailing when we went, but literally a month later, it was a disaster. Now, a lot of you guys are hearing all of a sudden on the other side of the country. So Mexico, again, is in the news. Now we're talking about what's been happening with the Sinaloa cartel. Big news there. The son of El Chapo was rounded up by local police in Mexico, and that sparked massive outrage by the cartels located in Mexico. That's resulted in a lot of gunfire, hostage taking, destruction, burning of vehicles, roadside barricades, and lots of very bad situations. I know there's lots of tourists now that are in lockdown. Everybody's been basically said and mandated to stay in your hotels, stay in your homes, because things are extremely volatile on the West Coast when we talk about north of the Mazatlan area. I actually have been there several times, and I like the area. It's great. But now, unfortunately, it's extremely volatile, extremely dangerous, and the Canadian government has actually advised people basically don't even go unless it's absolutely necessary. Very dangerous and unstable situation going on in Mexico right now. And again, I can't help but think we really literally dodged a bullet. There was lots going on there, and it's just a scary time. So we had a great time. We got in, we got out, we had a wonderful time, and it was, rest well needed. But anyway, enough about that. Lots of exciting news happening there. Since then, we've been getting back to the grind. We spent a couple weeks out at the acreage. Obviously, a lot of you guys are aware of that. If you've been watching the channel for a while, we spent some time there with the family, riding the quad, shoveling some snow, watching lots of movies, and just lying low. And of course, you've probably still seen some of the content being created over on Exotic Car Play Place, because I'm quite active since the new year. But with all of that aside, let's talk about what we are actually just started out discussing, and that's the future of Jaguar, or the JLR group, unfortunately, currently owned by Tata Motors. So there's no big secret. I love Jaguar. We all know that. I've been talking about them for some time. I currently own the F-Type R, and I think it's a magnificent car. As a matter of fact, I think it's far better than a lot of the products that the Germans are pumping out. For example, cars such as the BMWs and the Benzes, I think just lack that soul and the passion that you find in some of these F-Types. So that's why I've currently owned one. But the sad, unfortunate reality is these cars are falling by the way of the dodo bird, and we've seen the writing on the wall. Did you realize back in 2018, they actually peaked at about 300,000 sales? Since then, it's been a downhill slide. Now, with about 14 different models available, there was certainly no lacking in choices and options. The sad reality, though, on the other hand, is Tata Motors, who clearly is the current owner of the JLR group, isn't one which has a lot of experience in electrification. That's a crossroads. That's where we're at. The whole market has strong pressures to develop that type of product. Companies like BMW, Mercedes, and even the Audi groups from VAG are all very focused on developing certain lineups and are fully committed to push products to market that truly comply. Jaguar both does not have the technology necessarily to properly develop electrified vehicles, but they also have a lot of vested products. For example, diesel, which is now a dirty word in a lot of the industry. They also have a lot of supercharged V8 engines, supercharged V6 engines, and other engines that generally just don't comply to the CO2 emissions regulations. They're dealing with a lot of problems against them, a big strong headwind, and they don't know how to get out of it because Tata Motor doesn't have necessarily technology. Now Jaguar is actually having to try to potentially team up with BMW. As a matter of fact, the latest version of some of their cars is currently focused on using the BMW twin turbo V8 engines. This way at least saves them some of the development costs, and then they bring on a product that's already more or less tried and true. Although BMWs aren't necessarily the most reliable, at least it's a well-supported product. Now, we've seen the writing on the wall for some time with the declining sales by Jaguar and Land Rover. Even with the newest Defender, it seems like a fresh new product, and while some people love it, it's not clearly satisfying the needs of a lot of buyers, and people are going to other options, more reliable options, potentially. Now with Tesla and some of the electrification around the corner, people are looking at other options. Jaguar has clearly been scaling things back. Obviously with the F-Type, we know that they had a host of different engines. They had a supercharged V6, supercharged V8, a couple of different states of tune, then along came a Turbo 4, but then they scaled back the 4 and got rid of the 6, and now all they basically have is an optional 2 different states of tune in their current supercharged V8 lineup. So even the F-Type has gone through some drastic reductions. Obviously, the diesel engines have taken a hit, as is some of the XE and XF type vehicles, and the optional engines that were available are starting to take a hit as well. So clearly they're trying to slow the bleeding and reducing the tooling costs, as many of these different specific models and specific engine configurations are very niche, and not a lot of people are buying them, and sadly that's hurting the overall bottom line. And you know, it's a sad state, because again, I keep saying sad state because I believe Jaguar has huge potential. They have some amazing cars. The F-Type is still one of the best cars, and clearly, in my mind, a worth keeping. What's going to help them get out of this? Well, that's really hard to say. Is it literally the beginning of the end? I think really their best option is to shed a lot of the truly unnecessary models. Let's face it, even during that last pandemic, what we had were cars like BMW and Mercedes. They all struggled too. Everybody struggled with getting chips to sell their products. Some of those other car manufacturers took a hard line and said, look, cars with small profit margins, poof, take a hit first. We'll put the chips in the cars that have the largest margins, and that was still allowing them to bring vehicles in, still maximize their profits. Whereas Jaguar didn't necessarily focus on that particular perspective, and of course, their profits weren't maximized or optimized, and you know, that just leaves them in a world of hurt, just continues that downhill spiral of sorts, but just a really, really bad deal. With all of that said, clearly, some of the strongest contenders are coming from China with the electrified technologies. And of course, Tesla and a lot of the other brands are starting to create their own options. Jaguar, Land Rover, they're literally going to have to piggyback. They're going to have to get on board, get in bed with somebody else, potentially develop a product line that's sustainable, that's well supported, that's reliable, and that meets all the criteria, so they can stay in compliance with some of the low carbon emissions, continue selling cars that are appealing, cars that look great, drive great, are reasonably priced and reliable. They're going to have to get on board with somebody. The one-off cars are not going to necessarily do it for JLR Group. They're literally going to have to do something a little bit more creative. They might have to sell their soul for a little bit just to develop some product lines. Hey, let's face it, Porsche did that a while back. Remember when they had to start developing SUVs? I mean, at the end of the day, the Cayenne is really what dished Porsche out, you know, and then they had the Boxster. So they started selling higher volume, lower cost cars that appeal to people in an entirely different demographic. And that's really what helped dish Porsche out. And now they've got all kinds of money to continue further developing and enhancing their racing opportunities. Porsche is a whole different company now. So it all boils down to management. I mean, maybe the only way out is for Tata Motors to just outright sell JLR Group to somebody with some serious bankroll, and that might in fact be what it takes to get them out of this predicament. But the way it stands, and this constant spiraling downward, the lack of innovation, and the fact that they can't get on board some of their gas-guzzling vehicles that aren't compliant, their drooping sales, just means that unless they do something seriously aggressive and seriously quick, they're in a world of hurt, and there may not be a future for the Jaguar Land Rover Group. And that saddens me to say that, because I love the brand. I think they create some very cool, interesting vehicles that who wants to all drive around in milk cartons? I don't want to drive around in a white Toyota minivan. No, we want something a little different. That's why we drive these vehicles. Hopefully they figure out something in the business that is able to trigger a new excitement for the brand, hopefully bring some more money and revenue back into the business, and that they continue further enhancing and developing a great product line. So that's really where I boil down with this. That's my thoughts on it. They're in some tough times right now, and honestly, I think it's time to give their head a shake, figure this out, and get moving. Get on board like the rest of the company, or like the rest of the world is, because really things are changing, and they're changing very, very quickly. So I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that, but you know what? Hey, if you have any theories on it of your own, love to hear it down below. I mean, what do you think the future is for Jaguar? And on top of that as well, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you're not already a subscriber, please do. Remember, this is all about the lifestyle. And remember, at the end of the day, life's too short to drive boring cars. So see each and every one of you on the next one. Catch you real soon. Bye-bye.